Hi guys, how are you? So nice to connect to you. Well, welcome to this channel and welcome to this video. My name is Laura. This is Pleiadian Healer from PleiadianHealer.com. And today we're going to be going through a few different topics. So if you're new to this channel, definitely subscribe, hit the notification bell. A lot of interesting stuff coming up. Now, I want to go through a few topics that I received from my patrons. And I have this new series on Patreon over the past 2 months already, which is kind of called Ask Your Question, or just questions to dissect through, to read on. So these are questions that have to do with the general public, or just stuff that's happening in the world, not necessarily the weekly readings for my patrons and members that has to do with their personal stuff. For example, can you pull cards for me or whatever? But these are legit questions. For example, something happened in the mainstream news, or, what was really happening in Ukraine, or what's really happening in this and that area. So we got some questions in regards to the Georgia Guidestones. We also have some questions in regards to Cern or Cern, however you want to pronounce that. And then also sinkholes in China and a few other matters. I just want to go through those just to give you a bit of an overview. And I do want to say thank you so much for everyone who has been supporting this channel, and also all my patrons out there who have been asking these questions and who've made it possible to make all these videos with insight and everything too. Now, if you want to join Patreon, you can. It starts with the lowest tier, which is currently $5 a month and up. And I'm going to have the next Ask Your Question video out pretty soon. There are 2 of those per month as of now. So I'm just going to read the insight that came through. And for each one of these questions, by the way, it takes like a good 4 to 7 minutes just to kind of read on it. So the way I read on it is intuitively. And then I also pull tarot cards and oracle card pulls just to get more insight. You don't have to channel entities like spirit guides, the Galactic Federation of Devilnishness or evilness, Pleiades, Arcturians, all these false light white entities and beings, which rarely are Pleiadians and Arcturians. They're just like interdimensional beings disguised as such, right? You don't have to channel your guides or misguides, how I like to say that. You don't have to channel angels, archangels, ascended masters, all these archons. You can legit just get all this insight on your own. I do teach how in my course, Soul Communication. Be in touch with your soul. And you can find more on my website, PleiadianHealer.com. The course is actually going up in price for September 1st. So if you still want it at the current price, if you're interested in it, I would probably get in it before that. Otherwise, it is going up because I've added more modules to it over the past 1.5 years that I have created it, and it's just fair to raise the price in accordance to that. Anyhow, let's go into a few of these matters. And we're going to start with the Georgia Guidestones. And right off the bat, I do want to say, I personally have never really resonated with the Georgia Guidestones and the entire narrative that goes with it. You have to be very careful what psyops you're feeding into. And it seems like a lot of these truther channels or truther communities were really enamored with, oh, Georgia Guidestones, or, oh, who's going to become the next president of the US, just those kind of things. So it's always like the same people that were really, really into those type of psyops. For me, the Georgia Guidestones, there was always something off with the narrative of it. And I just couldn't put my finger on it, but I wasn't really super interested in reading on it. So when someone asked that question, I was like, this could be interesting, because I personally have never read on it. So what we got on Georgia Guidestones basically was whatever happened, with the explosion and all of that going on in the summer. So the timing at 3:33 a.m., a lot of that was fabricated. And it seems, so whatever they're saying in the mainstream, obviously there's a lot of fabrication around that narrative. Just reading from my notes here, that I put down when I read on these things after recording on Patreon. It seems there could have been a lot of people witnessing the event. So what came to mind was someone like a government organization like the F, B, and then I, or the C, and then I, and then A. It could have been a lot of those 3-letter agencies that were witnessing the event, meaning it was kind of caused by them in a form or another, or they were fulfilling orders. Maybe it was also just a single person kind of witnessing it, but it felt like it was like this group somehow, and that the single person came through during the reading, because it was like supposed to be this group that was witnessing it. So there were a bunch of people around it. The explosion, all of that is true. I do see that. There were quite a few people involved in it. And the reason for all this is also because there's something underneath that area. So not necessarily the Guidestones themselves. You know, when a lot of these things are kind of hijacked, or when something is put on there in the form of the land somehow, for example, here in New York, you have the Statue of Liberty that could very well be on very powerful land where it is in and of itself. And that's why people don't necessarily have access to the island that it's on, right? And all those things. So it could be that wherever the Georgia Guidestones were on, there was a lot of spirituality somehow in that area, like in that exact same area, almost like a vortex or portal or something like that, something underneath. And it could have belonged to these institutions like the 3-letter agencies that I just mentioned. It seemed that there was something energetic going on beneath the Guidestones, like spiritually energetic. Even bulldozing that area, it's hard to destroy the energetic component of that area. It's hard work to destroy that completely. Distorted energy of the Guidestones through everything so far. So whatever was going on with the Guidestones, I'm not 100% sure because I never really was interested in them, but it seems a lot of narratives were kind of displayed on them, very dark stuff on it. So because of that, that area had distorted energy, but there's still spiritual energy below it. And I think that question came from Rainbow. And then Mahala asked the question in regards to Pfizer building up the Guidestones again. So I think they announced they want to build them up again. It does appear they want to do that. It's not just of a promise they're making that they're not going to fulfill. What came to mind when I read on it was satanic rituals. So the Guidestones are a portal too, or could have very well been a portal somehow. Something artificial going on, you know, watchers in the astral spying on other people. There's also a connection to South America somehow through the Guidestones, which isn't surprising because a lot of these, let's just say ley lines or whatever, or vortexes and points are interconnected, right? So the grid work goes very far. If you go to Mexico, Guatemala, Colombia, there's a huge grid work that was laid by the Mayans, for example. No, the Mayans were not good people. They were a pretty brutal tribe overall, but just as an example, you know, so there seems to be a connection somehow from the Guidestone area to South America. It could have very well been like Peruvian or something like that. Maybe Pfizer wants to take over Earth and turn it into AI through building up the Guidestones somehow. There were mirrors that came through. Mirrors typically act as portals for people who aren't aware. If you have a mirror somewhere in your apartment, left and right, whatever, a lot of people have mirrors in their living room or bedroom. You might want to cover that up before you go to bed because entities can actually enter through those mirrors and definitely enter into the astral space when you're dreaming and everything, cause psychic attacks or just do a whole bunch of stuff that you're not really aware of. So when I see a mirror, for me, that's instantaneously a portal, right? Guidestone area is a portal, and that Pfizer wants to use it for a different agenda or just different agendas overall. Maybe take over Earth, convert it into AI. There's a different consciousness connected to the Guidestones is what I got. So in and of itself, like Mother Earth or Earth in and of itself is beautiful as of now. But obviously part of the agenda is trying to convert it into AI, right? We all know that that's what the controllers want, or the people that are in the most control of the matrix game as of now. And then we had another question, Cern. Is Cern or Cern opening up portals? The reason I say Cern is because it's in Switzerland and sometimes the Swiss German comes through, which I'm fluent in German for people who don't know. So is Cern or Cern opening up portals? Yes. So what we got was a clear yes. We pulled a very clear yes card, and it almost seems like they were pulling, they were opening up portals to the stars or the cosmos, meaning like kind of beyond whatever this earth realm is, like kind of beyond that. Whether or not that's the real stars or cosmos is irrelevant for this video. But it's hard work. So there's also a conflict by doing like whatever was happening with Cern. There was a conflict with other entities or other agendas. You know, if you kind of assume there are all these different entities that want to be in control, all these different factions that want to be in control of Earth or the current narrative, there seems to be a conflict with these different agendas. They could have also been doing this entire Cern thing from the medieval ages on, so for a very long time, for hundreds and hundreds of years. The question was actually if whether or not the portals opened, the portals opening up were helping to facilitate entity possession. So whatever portals Cern was opening up, would that facilitate entity possession? But what I got on it was that it actually goes way deeper than that. Like entity possession is going to be your least concern with the portals that are being opened up by this. Someone feels backed up in a corner as well, is waiting for backup. So it's almost like these factions, or let's just say Illuminati, Freemasons, whatever, they want to turn Earth into an AI world, like we already saw with the Guidestones too. And they want to create this AI world, and Cern is a huge factor of it. And it could have very well started occurring with the medieval ages, with the dark ages and beyond, which was a pretty chilly message to receive when I was pulling all these cards. However, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be successful. And then hand in hand with that also was the Vatican catching on fire. So these just all questions that I'm reading on. It's not necessarily something that I saw on the news or whatever. So instantaneously with the Vatican, they're using spells, and the higher council card kept coming through over and over again. So for me, that meant the controllers, like the Illuminati, Freemasons, however you want to call them, right? That they're involved with this. They're using magic or spells, not in a good way, by the way. Seldomly are spells used in a good way. I do want to point that out too. So if you're into spell work and all of that, just consider that a lot of people who put those spell works into the world are of negative intentions, you know, never had the intention to heal the world or whatever. So they're retrieving soul pieces of other people. And also kind of something with the water came through. So they're working through water as well, because the water energy card came through, somehow infiltrating the water. It could be because water travels faster than sound. Isn't that what the mainstream science is telling us? Or at least has a capability to travel faster than sound, or the speed is the same as sound. So maybe they're putting something in the water, like some vibrations that are getting to people, putting spells on them. They also want to gather information, and they're hiding all of that through the fire. So the fire was just kind of this thing that was hiding what was really going on in the Vatican. There's also something matrix related stored in the Vatican. It could have to do with aging too, like the aging program. You know, maybe they have like a fountain of youth or something similar to that there. Not literally the fountain of youth, but some sort of technology that keeps people young. Let's put it that way. Could also have to do with all the child rituals that they do, which you guys probably know what I'm talking about. So they're hiding soul pieces of people there. It also seemed there was a connection to the tree of life to the Vatican, which I've gotten that already when I was talking about the injections and how the tree of life is infiltrated and hijacked, and how they're trying to get to the souls of these people who took their jibbity jabbity Jew, and the tree of life is grabbing their soul essences. And it could very well be that it's looped back to the Vatican, because the Vatican is involved in a lot of this. The Vatican is also very much involved in the Christmas story and all the trauma that goes on during the Christmas time. So it's just kind of best to turn off your news because there's only negativity on the news, as a note that I made here. Another thing is that we just need a sense of humor and hope for humanity. Despite all they want to pull off, we still need a doses of all that. We can turn this around, and we are more powerful than anything. Otherwise, they would not want to control us like that. So, especially after reading on all those three things, that's the message that came through very clearly. If we weren't the powerful beings that we really are, if we weren't able to really create this reality, they wouldn't have to do all these things to us. So it's very important just to notice that. There are a few other things to read on, like ascension codes that might be interesting for people who are still in the New Age trap, and also the law of attraction. So let's just try to go through a few more of these healing modalities too. So one more, this had to do with old buildings. Are they used to harvest energy? This has to do especially with like cathedrals, church structures, all of that, having this thing on top. I think that's what the person meant to ask the question. So they have this, all these forms, whether or not it's triangles or all these other, most often it's a metal top type of thing. And people who are really into Tartaria, and they've done a lot of research on it, oftentimes they kind of loop it back into that it used to be meant for like grid work or electricity. So were those old church structures, the metal thing on top, were they really meant to harvest energy? What I got was not necessarily. So maybe it gave power to the people and then it was misused somehow. So whoever came up with it, the initial intention was not necessarily to harvest energy, but maybe those things are also used to power the entire reincarnation trap and reincarnation cycle, which is basically the recycling trap. Also something with birth giving. For me, I kind of saw that as reincarnation, but maybe they actually used to really power like mothers giving birth somehow through those ways too. They definitely used to power electricity and also travel, meaning trains, possibly streetcars, those kind of things. So the energy, it felt like the energy was not like electricity that we have nowadays, but something different, something more powerful. It would power the electricity or whatever you want to call it. It was not necessarily meant to harvest energy. It would power the reincarnation cycle. And then I saw this electric pot that they were tapping into. So more like the controllers were tapping into, that only a very few select people like the Illuminati, whatever, had access to. And that was the one that was meant to harvest energy off of the general people, but it was somehow not available to the public. But then also I pulled a card that had to do with a man working very hard in the field, and that was the karmic trench card with the Akashic tarot deck for people who know. So it could be that other people were working very hard out there in the fields for this electric net to be powered, and for the huge like churches, state buildings, everything, for that to just kind of get along with. So I thought that question in and of itself was very interesting. And then we had sinkholes in China, and just the answer to that. So mud floods coming to light, civilizations existing beforehand, and through these sinkholes, they're trying to erase cultures and traditions. A new reality opening up in China, but also that love can combat this and set walls in motion. So the love that people have for each other, not necessarily the romantic love, but also like the love a parent has for a child, the love that you have for your grandparents, the love that you have towards other beings like pets, whatever. So their ancestors, so China in and of itself is already on a different timeline. That's kind of what I also got like 2 years ago when I was really reading on China and how, what they were doing during 2020 was so bad. And they're still doing it, by the way, all the measures of locking people into their homes and everything. Like China is still very bad about it. Like Shanghai had like the worst thing ever a few months ago again. So they're pulling off all these things on China because they're already on a different timeline and they feel they can do whatever they want with their Chinese people. So the Chinese ancestors and families could have caused sinkholes to come to light. Something like love was somehow causing the sinkholes, like love for the tradition, love for the culture, for the people. In China, they want everyone to hate each other, but they need to have love for each other to combat this entire agenda that's going on. It could also be that some other beings, like fairy-like beings or elemental beings, are causing the sinkholes, and they're trying to manifest a reality to come into light and see it exist. Trees trying to expand in the land, healing, earth trying to heal, storm spirit, chaos in China, all these other things are occurring. And then also a government collaboration has to do with it. So somehow these sinkholes, there's a larger story behind it, it appears. I personally wasn't really too informed about the sinkholes, so it's always interesting to get those type of questions where you're reading on something that you actually don't really know even occurred. But it seems that the government kind of knows about the sinkholes and they maybe even want to cover up what's below it, but love will always win at the end. In short, basically. I know when I'm reading these notes, it might be confusing for people who aren't familiar with the style of videos that I make, but I just want to convey this information to you. If you have any comments, you can always comment below. Leah had a question in regards to ascension codes. Is it another story or trap? Do they help others harvest your energy? I have no idea what ascension codes are. I've been out of the New Age movement for a very long time. I don't think I ever really resonated with any of the light codes or ascension codes to begin with. So I think it's probably something like stuff they put on you or something that comes through in meditation, maybe. So ascension codes could make people feel better initially. And then I saw the all-seeing eye, which I have a video on that and how it's, basically infiltrated and used to as a portal. So the all-seeing eye is a portal being opened up, meaning these ascension codes could open up these portals that are meant to harvest energy. The Lionsgate portal is a huge one, which, that's coming up August 8th every year. And it's one of the biggest New Age trap stories and movements out there. A lot of New Ages get triggered by the Lionsgate portal being a psyop and meant to harvest your energy. But that's how it felt that the ascension codes were too. So it's not surprising to me personally, because I've been out of this entire, we have to worship the Lionsgate portal, we have to worship the ascension. I've been out of that for so long. And once you see through the deception, you can't unsee what's really going on. It's meant to power a system that's behind it. So the same with the Lionsgate portal, and it appears the same with these ascension codes. It grabs people's hard work somehow. So there's a collaboration between different entities as well. It could be that with these ascension codes, people are calling in all these false white light beings like angels, archangels, ascended masters, which are essentially all archons too, negative entities. And these entities are kind of making these big contrasts, soul contracts or whatever, with these people that are using the ascension code. So you got to be careful with that. So there's a collaboration between these entities, people talking to each other, but somehow their energy is being held while doing that. It could make people feel like they are in this other dimension that they want to be dragged into, like the 5D or 7D or wherever the heck they want to go. But then the devil card came through too. So for me, that meant it's governed by something satanic, governed by the underworld, possibly. Demonic ascension codes, a lot of symbols too. So whenever you see all these symbols, you have to be careful, because you can legit open portals with a lot of these symbols, but they could also be imprinting something onto you that you don't want on there. And then you have to go in and remove it energetically, or have it removed by someone who knows what's actually going on. Satanic rituals, also something with, so if you're already looking into ascension codes and wanting to feel better because of it, you might be better off just trying to do some inner child wound clearing or inner child work. You're able to heal yourself more through healing the inner child. and you're able to do more work through that than any of these ascension codes or Lionsgate portal meditations or whatever would be able to give you. And it's just other work. It's just a different type of work than working with these codes, right? So that's something that came through. It's getting very hot while I'm recording this too, which is interesting. You know, it's very clear that they don't want this information to get out there, but I don't care anymore. All right, video's turning a bit longer than I wanted to. Spirit and power animals, what is up with the symbology behind that? And the essence of it, you can find spirit in every single thing out there. You know, you don't need to have an animal approach you for it to be like, oh, this is my spirit or power animal. You don't need to find your power animal in the astral, all of that. But spirit will give signs through whatever you're open to receiving. Whenever we are still enough, meaning actually like in silence or just still and able to observe our surroundings, spirit will give us the message in form of an animal, a person, or an accident that we're witnessing. Accidents are always so revealing to me. Like when you witness a car accident in front of you, or when you're involved in one, or all of these things, it really shows that something major is either going wrong in that person's life or something surrounding the circumstances. You can find spirit in a word that is being said, you know, in an interaction that happens in the subway or whatever. So spirit is trying to grab our attention no matter what. But most of the times the reality wants, like the current reality, the matrix reality wants to take us out of the moment so that we don't have the time to analyze what that interaction meant. And if you're able to just be still enough and listen to everything, there's so much symbology around you in the life around you, but you don't have to go to these websites out there and find out, oh, what does it mean when I saw a monkey or a fly or something? You know, what does this mean? Does it mean abundance or all that? You don't have to do that. You can find symbology for your own situation by just tapping into it, being in communication with your own self, which the soul communication course teaches too, by the way. So there could be treasure behind all these communications spirit is throwing our way, and we can find that treasure intuitively, but sometimes it gets lost because we're just not ready to see that this was communication coming from spirit. You know, we're just too occupied with our lives that we had, you know, being trapped in a corporate rat race or being trapped in whatever we're currently in, like just, oh, we have to go to lunch now, or we have to make this meeting now. You know, we can't find symbology in this homeless guy talking to us, or in this fly being on our wall. So you really just, if you really want to live completely in the moment, which I know Eckhart Tolle really promotes that too, and this is how they get you. Like this is how the Eckhart Tolle New Age people get you, because there is truth behind being in the moment. There is a lot of power in the moment, but it's obviously not going to be 24/7 that you're able to do that. So if you're able to just find stillness somehow, you will be able to communicate with spirit or your own intuition much, much better. Let's do one more, or like two more. We wanted to do like healing modalities or law of attraction. Okay, so it kind of goes hand in hand. Like both are in essence the same, that both the law of attraction and the healing modalities are being hijacked. The healing modalities just in general, you know, you can count Reiki, you can count every single healing modality, acupuncture, whatever they have out there right now, maybe even shamanic healing that they're teaching. Like every single thing used to be pure. It was powerful because it came from these ancient times, like ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, ancient whatever. There's also something with time and timelines being shifted during these healings, you know, similar to the Time Master card came out. So for example, with shamanic journeying, you're able to change the circumstance and event in the past by traveling back in time and changing how you view it or changing your attitude towards it. But most practitioners who are doing these healing modalities right now, like the quantum healing technique and all of that, they don't have a higher awareness, and they follow like the lower world stuff, you know, maybe they follow the money, or they just kind of follow like these entities that are giving them advice, like spirit guides, angels, whatever. So they're doing it for maybe the finances or all the wrong intentions. And it really depends on how much love you bring forward during these sessions as a practitioner yourself, because love heals all. But a lot of practitioners that you're working with these days are not operating from that standpoint at all. And that's kind of what got lost over time too, is what I feel. When you are in touch with like native techniques, or when you really are in touch with a very wise Native American or whatever, not all of them, I realize there's a lot of infiltration in that culture too. But typically there's a form of love that you don't encounter in the technology world as much than you do in these more ancient civilizations. Especially when you go to like far away things. So not necessarily in the US, but like Mexico or other cultures and countries. So that's kind of what was going on with just healing modalities, whether or not they were hijacked. I got yes, mostly yes, because of that, but they used to be very powerful. Even like Reiki in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with Reiki. Like I feel the guy who invented Reiki, or he kind of brought it forward, which was a Japanese guy, his intention was very good, but then it kind of just got distorted into what it's now. And with all the symbols and everything, you don't need any of that. Let's put it that way. Law of attraction, is it infiltrated? So a strong yes, it is. Once again, the law of attraction is based off of these pure concepts, and the concepts are based on ancient technology and ancient knowledge, and they somehow became hijacked throughout the times. So you have these ancient, let's just say ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, because the Oracle of Delphi card came through. For me, that kind of means like ancient Greece, could have also been Roman times or ancient Egypt. But these concepts carried over somehow from these ancient times, which could have not even been that long ago. But just for the purpose of this video, we're going to call them ancient times. They became completely distorted, and then they were woven into their own stuff. So with the law of attraction, it was kind of distorted, and then these business people made it into their own stuff. They're also calling in all these entities that are not of the highest good and that don't operate for the higher good. So that's where the most infiltration is happening, because they're really calling in all these entities in the astral. The stronger your imagination, etc., is, the more the law of attraction is going to work for you. But basically, if you just work with general manifestation techniques, which there are so many out there, you don't need this law of attraction principle in and of itself, because general manifestation really has to do with like the stronger you envision something, the stronger you believe in something, the more you will be able to manifest things in your life, right? So some people are better at that because they believe more in themselves, even though other people are more talented than them or have more skill set than them. Some people are just better at creating that, also because they have just a better storyline to their story, to their life. The concept behind the law of attraction seems hijacked and infiltrated, but you can still use like the general manifestation techniques somehow if your imagination and visualization are good. And all these concepts are based off of ancient techniques and technology, which were distorted over the time. All right, I think that was it for now. So if you want to be part of these ask your question videos, join Patreon. I might make more videos in the future on the YouTube, but it's obviously going to take some time. Like these are questions from a few months ago still. And if you think it resonates, or if you have anything to add, comment below, let me know. Thank you so much for your support, everything you do, and talk to you very soon. Until then, have a wonderful day. Bye.